But we'll get going with this evening's talk. So as I say, we're joined by Arantza, who is the collections manager at the National Fairground and Circus Archive, which is a role that she's held for 8 years. Previously, she worked in museums and art galleries for 12 years in various roles. Arantza has a BA in Fine Arts, specialised in conservation and restoration. She has an MA in Museum Studies, and she's currently undertaking an MA in Archives and Records Management at Dundee University. The National Fairground and Circus Archive, which she's here to talk to us about, was born out of the PhD research and lifetime commitment and passion of Professor Vanessa Tulmin, who is the director from its inception until 2016. The archive is part of the Special Collections and Archive Division of the University of Sheffield Library. And the collection embodies the history of popular entertainment in the United Kingdom from the 17th century onwards, covering every aspect of the travelling fair, circus and allied entertainments, as well as the culture, business and life of travelling show people. It's a primary source of research and teaching material to a wealth of popular culture and history from the unique viewpoint of the travelling entertainment industry. So I am very pleased to be able to hand over to Arantza.
Thank you, Tamara. I'll just go ahead and try to share my screen with you. I hope you can all see that.
Yeah, we've got that. Thank you.
Right. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Arantza. I'm the collections manager at the National Fairground and Circus Archive. And I'm here. Thank you for inviting me to present and to talk to you about the archive. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm very passionate about getting the archive out there, promoted to people and to people with different interests, research interests and thematic interests as well. So the National Fairground and Circus Archive, as Tamara has said, is a research archive dedicated to the collection and preservation of travelling popular entertainment history in the United Kingdom. The archive was born out of the PhD research of Professor Vanessa Tulmin, who comes from a fairground family, and through her PhD, he delved back into her roots and their culture. Through her research, she met with fairground families, showmen and performers, and accumulated a room full of archive by the end of it. And she also came to the realization that there was no repository in the UK that would collect this material, and that the unified cultural identity of leisure history, the evolution of showmanship and travelling people as a defined community. And especially that last point was very important, as showmen have only been widely acknowledged as a community in the last census, so that's 2021. They have hundreds of years of history, and still it's a community that has suffered discrimination and still suffers discrimination, and a lack of cultural recognition as well. So if these collections were to have been deposited in archives as an alternative to the university starting its own archive, they would have been split across the country, and some of the material would have been inevitably lost. So what they found is there was the collections would have been collected by other archives in different places across the country with their locality interest. So they would have collected maybe a family's archive because they were from that place, but the kind of the cultural identity behind the archives and of the showman community would have been lost, and that's the kind of what trigger for Professor Vanessa Tulmin to work with the Showmen's Guild of Great Britain, the Fairground Association of Great Britain, and the university together to establish an archive at the heart of the university library to be part of its special collections and archive division in 1994. So we're only a 28-year-old archive. We're a baby, really, and we have lots of growing to do. But I suppose we started with about 2 linear meters of archive, and now we have 500 linear meters of archive. In archival terms, it is a small collection, and as I said, we have still a lot of development and growing to do. The collection embodies the history of popular entertainment in the United Kingdom, covering every aspect of the travelling fair, circus and allied entertainments, as well as the culture, business and life of travelling show people from the 17th century to the present day, and contextualizes the evolution, cross-cultural impact and spread of popular entertainment. And I think maybe what a lot of people don't realize is that the collection is not just about circus and fairgrounds, but we also collect all the allied entertainments that developed around the traveling shows and the traveling fairground. So for instance, magic, earlier film, so before 1914, before the advent of the cinema as a building, as an entity, early films will travel with a fairground. All sorts of different performances, variety and music hall, Wild West, sideshows, freak shows, seaside entertainment, theme parks, anything that was related to popular entertainment, really. I picked 3 highlights of the collection, although it was hard to pick any highlights because there is so many items of interest and so many collections of interest. And sometimes it's just one item within a collection that, you know, a document that pops up and you kind of discover a whole story behind them. And it just, you know, it just amazes you how powerful archives can be. The first image is Liliumai's emergency passport. It was expedited by the American Embassy in Berlin in 1915 after Lily, her sister Ada, and their brother Claude were caught in Germany at the outbreak of the First World War while performing as the All My Sisters. Yes, it was very common for men to pose as women, especially in circus, and when the acts that were performing require a lot of physical strength. So you will find a lot of men dressed as women and pretending to be women. So they were caught in Germany at the outbreak of the First World War, and they were interned in the infamous Ruhleben prisoner camp. Ruhleben was a race course 10 kilometers to the west of Berlin, which was hastily converted into a civilian detention camp. The vast majority of prisoners were British men, to such extent that the camp was known as Little Britain, or Ruhleben prisoner camp for Englishmen. A great number of the prisoners were academics, artists and performers who either lived in Germany or were traveling at the time. For instance, a famous name is Nobel Prize physicist James Chadwick, who discovered the neutron, which perversely led to the development of the atomic bomb, which was crucial to the Second World War. The prisoners endured miserable conditions in cramped, pest-infested accommodation, and the American ambassador in Germany, James W. Gerard, visited the camp in 1915 before America got involved in the war. And he was horrified by the squalor he found at Ruhleben and provided funds from the actual embassy to improve the conditions and the facilities in the camp. The American embassy also issued a number of emergency passports to allow some prisoners to return home. This enabled Lily and Ada's release, while Claude, who would have been fitted for military service and would have been recruited by the armed forces in on his return to England and sent back to fight, while he had to remain interned throughout the war. And I find this document really powerful in that it tells a whole story of the harrowing events that befell the family just by itself, and it demonstrates so clearly how important primary sources has to decipher the past. The second image or images are part of the Sangha Circus collection, which is a unique visual testimony of one of the most important British circuses of the 19th century, and it attracts a lot of research interest. I have picked this collection because I love how the images bring the human aspect and personal stories into context. And I feel that sometimes we can become insensitized to the people behind the documents, and they can get lost in academic text, and are humanizing the archives. I also think is a better way to make connections with users and bring stories to life. And the third document or group of documents belong to the John Bramwell Taylor collection. This collection contains a lot of rare printed material from the 19th century, late 19th century, related to traveling shows mainly in London. And it gives us an insight on the culture and pastime interest of people across all walks of life and social position. And the entire collection is an insight into British society, culture and history from the very unique viewpoint of popular entertainment. This is also a collection that is very much used by researchers and very prone to reproduction as well. All our collections really are very visual, and we spend a lot of time reproducing images for our users and researchers. Since you are interested in transport, I thought I'll talk about some of the content in the collection. We're saying earlier that I suppose it will surprise a lot of people that the transport is so central to our collections, and it's not the first thing that will come to my mind when I think of fairgrounds or circuses. Although thinking about this, yeah, it's, you know, they are traveling entertainments, so of course they're going to have a lot of transport elements to it, and it is very important. So we collect material related to all aspects of the transportation of fairground and circus equipment and people. This includes photographs, plans, film, specialist publications, books and archival material, and a lot of it has been created or accumulated by fairground preservation movements and enthusiasts. We do not collect material on general transportation or agricultural equipment. Transport in our collections is represented from many different angles, from living wagons to fairground trucks and haulage, animal transportation and food vans, of course. Let's not forget about that. The images in the collection show aspects of the development of transport, from horse-pull carts to steam engines and the takeover of the internal combustion engine after the First World War. As I've already mentioned, the material we hold mainly comes from fairground enthusiasts who more often than not are either engineers, transport professionals such as bus drivers, or steam engine enthusiasts. Also a lot of teachers for some reason. The transport archive dates from the 1800s to today, with the bulk of the images dating between 1930 and 1990. Some of the companies represented are Savages of King's Lynn, Orton and Spooner, Charles Burrell, Edwin Foden, Scammell and Fowler. We hold 62 collections containing aspects of transport, and we have over 22,000 images online related to transport. I will show you a little bit of our online image database later. All our collections are available online, if they've been processed, of course. And some of the key collections on transport are the Autumn and Spooner, Jack Wilkinson, Jack Leeson, and Roland Scott. Just to name a few, as I said, there are 62 collections that are kind of where transport is heavily featured. I thought I'll also give you an overview of some of the projects that we work on and some of the research that we carry out at the archive. So we conduct a lot of research into our collections ourselves to help make them accessible and discoverable. We're not an archive that researchers or students immediately think of, so we need to go the extra mile to show the relevance of our collections and the links to research interests. Recently, we have conducted research projects into World War I to commemorate the 100 years of the end of the war. And more recently into Fairground manufacturing company Autumn and Spooner, which is the images that you can see in the presentation. This is the exhibition that we're holding on at the moment. Both projects led to exhibitions and community engagement activities. We are very keen to engage with our communities and to expand our reach to other communities as well. So at the moment, we're doing a lot of work with younger audiences, although our audience has always been an adult audience because of where we base and because we're a research archive. But I think it's never too early to start engaging children with archive and to start bringing down some barriers of accessibility and relevance as well, and understanding archives and understanding that these resources are open to everyone, and it's, I think, our right as citizens to access them and use them. So the Autumn and Spooner exhibition is currently on at the Western Bank Library, which is where the archive is based, and it is until the 11th of June. It opens 7 days a week and is free to visit. So feel free if you're in Sheffield. We have worked with academics from architecture, physics and arts on this and the curation of this exhibition. So we've worked with an academic who is done years of research into Fairground architecture. We've also worked with an academic from physics who actually builds Fairground rides and who has done a lot of research into the experience of thrill and when people experience thrill and how to maximize that through Fairground rides, and work with showmen to develop different experiences. And we've also worked with academics from art, because we've got a section in the exhibition that's all about the Fairground art. And we're planning a series of lectures in spring, which will be widely advertised, and also like community events throughout. So once the exhibition is up, it doesn't mean the work has finished. On the front, you have some of the so this project basically has been running for 3 years. Of course, the pandemic kind of has got in the way. It should have been a 2-year project and then the exhibition, but is now the 3rd year. Basically we ask the National Manuscript Conservation Trust for some money to have the designs, the original designs and artwork that you can see here, 3 examples on the front, conserve. This collection, although is extremely important and have some amazing and unique manuscripts and documents within it, it wasn't very accessible because some of these objects are A0, A1, you know, like very large documents, and were in such a poor condition. They basically were rescued from the factory before it was demolished by enthusiasts and researchers. So we owe them that, definitely. Anyway, attached to the conservation, we have scanned over 700 documents. So we included blueprints as well, which weren't conserved, but we've scanned them. We've created finding aids for all the objects, descriptions, developed a lot of metadata. We're in the process of uploading all of that into our databases to make it accessible to our users. It's a long process and it requires a lot of work. And as I was saying, we've also worked with communities and with other organizations and academics. I am currently also working with, I've been working with Joanna Whittle for about a year. She's a Sheffield-based artist, and who you can see some of her paintings. So she kind of makes almost miniature paintings of circus tents and fairground rides and frontages in desolated landscapes. And she's very interested in transient communities and communities that have been displaced, like for instance refugee communities, and their impact on the landscape. Her paintings always have that aspect of desolation and eeriness about them. They're always devoid of any human presence, and they're very kind of psychologically charged. So basically we put in a bit together to the Arts Council to develop her practice further. It will consist of a year-long research project using the archives and also developing community involvement and workshops and doing a lot of work with external communities and academics. And then it'll lead to an exhibition at the end of it in 2023. So we hope we're successful. We also promote research through student placements and internships. And of course, we work with loads of academics and independent researchers, family historians, authors, enthusiasts, film and TV makers, and so on. So people who wish to view the archives can book an appointment through our website. The archive is open to everyone Monday to Thursday. I think I'm going to start doing, like, I'm going to show you how to access the archive now, and if you want to book a visit, how to do that. So I'm hoping this is going to, I might have to come out of here. Hold on, I'll stop sharing. If I share. How can I share a web page?
I think if you press screen share, it should give you an option of different windows if you've got the window open.
No, it just goes straight onto whatever I've got open on my browser. Oh, hold on. Let's have a look.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
So this is our old website. but it's still working. And for me, it's the easiest way to find out about the archive. So specifically about visiting, you can see an image here of our reading room. It looks slightly different now, more or less the same setup. It's just the tables have been moved around. Because of COVID, we've had to kind of separate tables and do things like that, but it's the same place. You can see that we open Monday to Thursday, and you've got the opening times here. So there's always a little break, well, an hour break for lunch there. And if you wanted to book a visit, this is the, you can send us an email here to this email address and just tell us when you want to come. Also very useful if you want to access archives, to tell us to browse our collections first and tell us what it is that you want to look at, because we can't produce the collections the same day, but all the literature is all National Fairground and Circus Archive literature, but all the literature that is in the reading room can be accessed directly. So if people want to just come and have a browse at the books, because sometimes you don't know where to go with your research, or you can do that as well. Anyway, there is some guidance for researchers as well on this webpage, and you also have a link to access guidance, which is part of the library web pages rather than us having our own separate guidance. And that's kind of it. So I was talking about, let me just open another link and try to share it with you. So during the pandemic, we've had a lot of time. This is not the right link, hold on. Let me try again. It's not there. Yeah, this is it. We've just been moving our records into a new collections management system called Archivist. We've called our portal Discover Our Archives. And it is work in progress. Not all our collections are there yet. All our collection level descriptions are there, but not all the finding aids have been migrated yet. We're still working on that. But I wanted to just kind of show you how to use it, because eventually this will be our only place to find our collections, and I think it is so different to what we've been using so far, and in means of discoverability, so much more discoverable. You can do so many more things with it, and it'll search all the records at the same time, which is not something that you can do at the moment. So you can see that it's not just us here, but it's also the special collections and archives, and also the university archives. So there are several ways you can search the collections. You can enter any term on the search, the archive box, and just click enter or click search, and you have your results on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side you always have a series of filters that you can use to like to make your search more kind of defined. So if we go into the Sangha Circus collection, you've got the title of the collection, you've got the level of description, the unique identifier for that the collection, and then a series of fields that give you the scope and content, is a brief description of the content of the exhibition, of the collection, the dates, so it's the range of dates that are covered, the creator, anything that comes up in blue and highlighted is a link that takes you to further information. So in that case, it takes you to a biography, and then any records that are linked to that person. So there are several layers of information that you can access through a single record. Then you've got conditions governing access. They refer to, well, they just say basically that you can come to the reading room and look at the collections and use the collections. Conditions governing use just talks about copyright, really. Biographical and historical information, again, is to give you background and to contextualize the collections and the people behind the collections. Extent tells you how big a collection is. This one is just 4 boxes. Then you've got languages, additional descriptions. So I think what's interested here is if we've got or have identified any related materials within our archives. It gives you another clue as to where to continue with your research. Subjects, so any subjects represented in the collection. Now, if you click on those subjects, it's going to take you to a subject and then any collections related to that subject. So we find that a lot of our users search our collections either by subject or by names. They're looking for people or a specific type of performances. And you can see that transport is that. Related names again, so it's all the people related to the Sangha circus. So you've got John Sangha, you've got his wife, you've got the different circuses they've had, and you've got his brother there as well. A finding aid and administrative information, I don't think you'll be interested in that. And then normally, if we had completed the migration of the collection and we had finding aids, they will appear in this right-hand side listed. But because we haven't for this one, you can find the finding aid as an external link. And if you click on it, it takes you to our digital portal where you can find the PDFs listing every series or you know, all the levels of description that we have on the collections down to item level, and it's several pages. So you can search the collections that way. You can also search the collections, as I was saying, by clicking on names and just looking for either people, organizations, or families. You have the filters on the right hand side, so you can see that you get National Fairground and Circus Archive and Special Collections and Archives results. So if you only wanted to search one of the collections, you just click on that filter and it narrows your search. And then all the people represented or organization, they're all in alphabetical order. So if you click on them, let me click on someone else who has a bit more information. So you have a biography. Normally, sometimes we don't have enough information about people, but normally you'll find a biography longer or shorter. And then any records or collections that are linked to them will be listed underneath, and you can click on anything and just access those records. You can also search the collection by subjects. So again, it'll appear in alphabetical order, and again, you can narrow your search and just, you know, pick a subject, and you have all the objects that are related to that subject. That subject appears and underneath. You can search through the digital materials. Now, this is an area that we haven't done a lot of work on, and you can see we only have 6 records because we need to upload all our finding aids first before we can link them to the records that we have on the actual digital platform, because these database is not a digital repository database, so it doesn't hold the digital records. You can only link to digital records that are held elsewhere, but eventually this is where we are aiming at. So having the visual representation of the objects, these digital records are all digital surrogates rather than digital born. So they're very visual. And so far we were unable to have the collections, descriptions and finding aids and their digital surrogates linked together. But now with this database we can do that, and eventually we will achieve that. We can see there is some descriptions there, and again some of the conditions governing access, and a bit more detail about conditions governing use and reproduction basically, and then some more information again on subjects, on related names and links to records. And also if you click on the image, it will take you to our actual digital portal there, and there is a little bit more information in there. Oh, sorry, I've just closed everything. Let me just go back to that. You can also search by clicking on collections. So if you do that, all the collections we have in the system will appear. And again, you can narrow your searches by clicking on different filters on the right hand side, and you have all the collections. So that's just collection level descriptions. You can see all the collections there. That's it. I know that like I've gone through that quite quickly, so I want to show you a video that I'm not going to show you the whole video. I'm not going to bore you with that, but I just wanted to show you that we've made a video that takes you step by step through kind of what I've said, a little bit more detail.
To access Discover Our Archives, go to archives.chef.ac.uk.
So I'm happy to share my presentation and all the links out there. So if anybody's interested, you can find them there, and it'll, as I say, it's a very simple step-by-step, really accessible know-how basically. I'm going to show you another link, or is still talking about discoverability and how to find the collections. So this is our old database, our old website, sorry. So we used to manage our website. In fact, I've done all of this, and I've done all the web pages, but now the university's centralized that work. And so now we have to submit anything that we want to update or we want to change. So this is kind of the rendments of our website, and I'm assuming it's not going to be there forever. At some point they're going to tell us that we have to take it down, but at the moment it is, because they've not migrated all the information either. So this is how I access the collections, mainly because I'm used to it basically. So you've got the home page, as you can see, And then you've got about the NFCA. So this is a bit what I've been talking to you about, a little bit of the background information. You've got all the staff, there I am, and my colleagues listed here. We've got our access policy there, so you can see the access policy. We've got our collecting policy, which you can download if you click on that link as a PDF, and you can read through it if you're interested. I think it's good for people if they're interested in knowing what we collect, but also for potential donors to know what we collect and what we don't collect and how we do it, basically. There is a little bit in family history. It's not something that I use very often, but it is there. We've gone through the visiting the archive page as well. You've got a page on digitization and copying services. So it tells you what services we provide and if there are any charges, what they are as well, and how to get in touch. This is how we used to make our collections accessible. So you can see that we've now got a link to the new database, but before that, all our collections were listed here, again, in alphabetical order, and you can go onto the collections, and then at the bottom, it'll give you the same information, basically the same fields that we've been looking at earlier. And then at the bottom, you have a link to the finding aid, which is also a PDF where you can search all the records. If the collections have any digital items online, there is also a link that takes you to all the items that we've digitized. They are also, let's have a look. So you can also search the collections by format. So here are all our formats listed, and you can go into them and do a Control F and, you know, look at our poster collection. There's pages and pages of it, or anything else. Then you've got collections by subjects as well. So, you know, if let's have a look. Esteem preservation, transport, and here are all the collections that have transport represented as a subject. And then finally, you can also search for the books and journals. I don't know if that's the best link. Let's have a look. Books and journals. So if you were interested in accessing their literature, you just have to enter your title in that box and search for it. And then it'll tell you where it is and if it can be borrowed or if it's part of the archive. We don't lend, but you can still request it and come to the archive to use it. And if NFCA Digital takes you straight to our digital portal, but I'm going to show you a little bit about that in a minute. Research and articles. So we have a lot of information, loads of articles that we've curated ourselves on different topics that we cover with the collection. So for instance, we also cover traveling boxing booths, and there is a bit of history about them. In Circus, early films, Fairground. So depending on the topic, there are more or fewer articles about it. On the Fairgrounds, there is a lot of information from the history to fairground rides, art, historic fairs. So that's another list of further articles, to showmen, to lighting, to, you know, different topics basically. And so on, you've got all the topics that we cover there. On projects, you can find some of the research projects that I was talking about. So there is there are pages for student projects. And you can see some of the topics that they've covered over the years. And there is also our own research, and here are the topics that we've covered. I was talking about the World War I research that we conducted and the pages that I created for that, and the different topics, and it's just layers and layers of information. Here you can access information about different stories. Here you've got again the Liliumai Circus family story in more detail and what happened to them, and many others. And then we've got news and online stores. We've not been updating the news, to be honest with you, since they told us that they were moving to a different website, which is, not so. A couple of areas are a little bit outdated, but most of it is, still relevant in means of the articles, the research, and also the collections. And lastly, I'm just going to show you our digital portal. So I'm going to try to share that with you. Here it is. So this is where we hold all our digital material, which right now is mainly digital surrogate. So we have a very visual collection, like I was saying earlier. And we have over 77,000 images on this portal. And to say that we're such a small organization and, a young collection as well, I think that's not bad. You can use the search box to search for anything that you want. So if I go into transport, excuse me, you can see we've got over 22,000 results linked to transport. You can see your results as a list as it appears now, or you can look at it as a grid, which is kind of a more visual way of looking at images. And you can also, let me move this, instead of having 10 results, you could have 100 or 200 results per page. And this kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility on how to look at images. And then, you can click on them and access all the metadata that we have on that specific image, what collection it belongs to, and, all the details. You can also open the images and kind of, zoom in, zoom out, and so on. And I think it allows you to download a low resolution image. You'll have your copyright there as well on what you can do with the images and stuff. And we're very keen to, to make sure that all the fair use, the people make use of fair use, basically legislation to access images and to use them. And that's it. That's my presentation.